I'll be speaking today about justice reform in Central Asia, and why is this important to talk about in the context of this conference is because there's been a tremendous growth in justice reform projects across the region. The two largest ones are in Azerbaijan, and a recent one has become effective in Kazakhstan. Azerbaijan is a little bit more advanced, so we'll be talking and focused more on Azerbaijan, also because that's the one I'm involved in, and I'm not involved in the one in Kazakhstan yet. Why is justice reform important? And a lot of people wonder, how is this development? But consider that without a transparent, efficient, and effective justice system, all development activities would actually not be sustainable. And why is that? Because who enforces contract and property rights? Who enforces and protects investment? Courts obviously do that, and supported by instruments of the justice system. Courts also improve economic performance by correcting abusive conduct of corporations. They play a very important role in doing that. And judicial commitment, and if you show that you have a very good justice system in your country, can give confidence to investors to come and invest in this country because they know that their rights and their property will be protected from arbitrary expropriation and from other abuses of arbitrary governance. So on the social sector as well, not just on the commercial side, on the social factor, we have a well-functioning justice system will ensure the protection of segments of the population that are traditionally been marginalized. The traditional people who generally get marginalized when you have a weak system of justice in place. So as I said, we will focus on the Azerbaijan model, and these projects are rather large. They range in cost between, Azerbaijan is in its second phase right now, and it ranges in cost between 100 to 200 million US dollars. That includes a contribution of the government, whether in land or in kind. But they are large projects, they are not small, and the project in Azerbaijan is called the Judicial Services and Smart Infrastructure Project. It's funded in part by the World Bank through the IBRD, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and in part by the government of Azerbaijan. The name is very long, so I'll refer to it by its acronym, JSSIP, which, that's also a very long acronym, so we'll just call it the project. How's that? I'm sorry if I hesitate when I'm speaking. I usually speak with an interpreter. It's the first time in a very long time that I haven't spoken with an interpreter, and I'm trying to keep myself in check and speaking slow, and then remembering that all speak English, so I'm speaking fast, so I'll keep you awake that way by changing speed. The project is quite ambitious. It has two objectives, and I'll tell you how these are, how we're implementing these. One is building a competitive non-oil economy, and that's very important, a competitive non-oil economy. To do that, you need foreign investment, and to encourage foreign investment to come into your country, you need a functioning and an effective and an efficient system of safeguarding rights and property and solving disputes outside of the international dispute resolution mechanisms. The other thing that the project has as an objective, the other objective that the project has, is strengthening social and municipal services with the cross-cutting theme of governance and anti-corruption. This is a very, very loaded objective, and the World Bank loves to have these loaded objectives, but we will parse it out. And let me parse it out in terms of describing the components of the project. We're looking at service delivery improvement, which is a major component, at modernization and expansion of the infrastructure. What does that mean? We're building 7 new court complexes. Now people will say, oh, you're spending money on bricks and mortars, but courthouses are like hospitals. They're built specifically for the purpose. You can't just build a box of bricks and mortars and say, well, this is a courthouse, or house it in an old building, or house it in a government in a government agencies. Courts are very specific buildings that require separation between the judges and the lawyers, private rooms for consultations, specific rooms for application, for record, etc. But the important part about building these new courts is that we are moving towards a system of e-justice. And I'll explain that a little bit more because that will be the focus of a part of my talk today. The third component, and one of the most important, is strengthening institutional capacity, efficiency, and monitoring and evaluation of the system as a whole. So when we talk about the justice system, we're not just talking about courthouses and judges and lawyers, but we're talking about also the training of judges, the training of lawyers, the bailiffs, the correctional services, the policing services, the social services, everything that comes into contact with laws that are created by the country. But in this project, we try to stay away from writing new laws, although we do make some recommendations on laws that need to be changed or that need to be amended when necessary. The two major assignments I'm involved in and I'm leading within this project, one is access to justice for vulnerable groups, which I will not talk about, but I'll talk about the more exciting part, which is the key performance indicators and the business intelligence dashboard. And why I want to talk about this is because this particular component actually cuts across the three, this particular assignment cuts across the three components of the project. We convert data into actionable management information, which allows the decision makers in the justice system to make appropriate decisions of resource allocation, correcting abuses, correcting problems within the functioning of the system. It makes relevant information accessible to a variety of audience. So now become more transparent because the business intelligence dashboard will actually be available to the public. Not everything, not in the minor details. The details will be available to court presidents, will be available to judges between each other, to some prosecutors, and of course to the government to be able to see the health of the system. And I'll show you some models of what that would look like. And of course, it facilitates the monitoring and evaluation on efficiency and effectiveness. So why don't we talk about this for a little bit and then move on. The principles that we started with in designing this assignment or this work package is that we want to create a service-oriented court and judicial culture that rewards innovation within the justice system and rewards improvement. I've been working in Azerbaijan for about 5 years now, and one of the things that I have come across is that people with good ideas generally do not voice those good ideas because there's nobody asked them. They don't come forward with a good idea. I remember in one instance we had a major training package. We had about 2,000 people, mid to high level, mid to low level government officials being trained on project management and other areas related to infrastructure projects in Azerbaijan. And when we went to find out how they are using the new knowledge, one person, I asked him, have you learned anything? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, do you use it? And he said, no. And I said, why? He said, well, because my boss doesn't know about it, and if I do it, I'd have to explain it, and he might not like it, and I don't want to get into trouble. And so, innovation is not always rewarded, improvements are not always rewarded, so we wanted to develop a system that will do that, and I hope we at least moved a little bit. We want to also develop a system that evaluates the work of the courts, as well as the work of individual judges in using actual performance data, and I'll tell you some of the specific elements that we look at, so that people making decisions about advancing judges, about keeping judges, about what cases to give them, are making decisions that are evidence-based. And this is a very important element in the work that we're doing. Everything has to be evidence-based, and without the evidence from the actual performance, we can't then make appropriate decisions. We want to enable stakeholders to monitor and manage the performance of the justice sector, and to give access to civil society, to the outside stakeholders, to the citizens, to take a look at how their system is functioning. Because the system is there to serve them. And we wanted to make, we wanted to have a system that provides sufficient information to make efficient allocation of financial and human resources among the courts, and so that it makes it a fair distribution of resources, a fair allocation of resources, as opposed to a somewhat arbitrary, or who has lobbyists hardest, and who has who has made it tobacco and who hasn't made it tobacco. So this was a very important factor in our thinking, important principle. So I'll just give you some of the key performance indicators that we looked at, and some of them might be a little bit technical unless you're involved in the sector. So I tried to choose ones that are not technical, but I will if they are, just ask me and I'll explain them. We looked at time key performance indicators. So time key performance indicators that we're interested in is the case clearance rate. There is a set timeline for cases to be cleared depending on the type of case that it is. So a criminal case, a minor criminal case has a certain timeline, a family case has another timeline, and this is by law that have to be cleared at that time. So we take a look, are you clearing cases in line with the time that is allowed by law? We take a look at the age of pending cases, so percentage of open cases within the time frame versus percentage of open cases that have exceeded the time frame. We look at quality KPI, and again, I'm just giving you just a couple of examples from each one of the categories. We look at quality performance indicators such as satisfaction of court users. We do this on the process to do this is to ask court users before and after being involved in the case. We do this on a through a questionnaire and on a not 100% user basis, but a bit of an audit basis. It's voluntary. We look at the in terms of quality, the hours of permanent education of judges and the education of lawyers, and what distinguishes a lawyer from an advocate, because they have this issue there. A country like Azerbaijan of about 9 million people has actually less than 800 lawyers that belong to the Bar Association, because most lawyers don't want to belong to the Bar Association, and so you have people practicing law who are not even lawyers, who just have an authorization by someone, by the claimant, and that is taken to a notary public, and it's been approved, and that person can then go represent that court. It doesn't work. It's not efficient. It's not effective either, because you have people making presentations in front of judges. They don't even know what the procedural rules are. And oftentimes judges are very frustrated, and they either dismiss the case, they either instruct the representative or the claimant on how to properly make a presentation. So it doesn't give you a sense of quality. So we're addressing the issue in terms of education and membership into the Bar Association, which requires quite a lot of work. We're looking at cost efficiency and productivity performance indicators. So we're looking at cost per case, human resources cost, and this doesn't just get into how much a person actually pays. This gets into how much electricity we have to parse out the actual expenditures in the courthouse in order to identify and allocate the cost per case. So there's a mathematical equation that goes into this. And I know I'm jumping probably through a lot of things because there's a huge infrastructure that sits beneath this. This is not happening in isolation. We are developing a new data warehousing and a new court management system. It's a tremendously large piece of work that is going to be taking all the information of all cases coming in, the names, the types, the way that they were completed. This is what we're talking about the e-court, is that everything is becoming digitized within the system, or e-justice, sorry. And we're looking also at indicators that relate to the vulnerable groups. The indicators that we're looking at for vulnerable groups are essentially the same as the time indicators, quality indicators, cost efficiency, but we have the additional category of, or the additional specification that they are, that how do these performance indicators apply to specific vulnerable groups that we have identified. And we also correlate this to legal aid, because legal aid is another problem. The legal aid actually pays lawyers about two manat, which is equivalent to a little bit more than $1.25 per hour of service, which is nothing, and that's why nobody wants to participate in legal aid. I'm going to conclude now because the other slides are essentially screens of the business intelligence view, and I don't think you can see it very well over here. Maybe you can turn the camera. Sorry. But we can see per judge what each judge is doing, and over here. So you can see per judge who is clearing cases, who is not clearing cases, who is going beyond the deadlines that are, and this gives then the court president the ability to manage his court or her court much more effectively than in the past, based on evidence of actual performance. I will conclude with this, with reiterating my first statement that without justice reform in Central Asia, all other efforts of reform and all other efforts of development will not be sustained or sustainable, because the justice system will sit at the heart of the improvement of conditions, not only for the people but also for investors, for economic development, for social development, and among other areas. Thank you.